Welcome, everybody, to the Genesis Project Podcast. Business principles for beginners from the School of Hard Knocks. They say that success leaves clues. In this podcast, we're going to discover the clues that it leaves behind, and we're going to start at the very beginning. We'll get into the weeds of how the guests of the show came up with their business ideas, the why behind their business ideas, how they dealt with setbacks and failures, what keeps them pushing forward, and the emotions behind it all. Everyone wants to start a business, but many are held back by something that keeps them from starting. We'll learn what it takes to get to the next level of business and beyond, and we're learning together through different principles of people who graduated from the School of Hard Knocks. So, grab you a pen, some paper, and a highlighter to take notes, because class is in session. Hey, welcome everybody to the Genesis Project Podcast. My name is the Chancellor, Bernard Gleaton, and today we have another lovely guest professor coming to us by way of Toronto, Canada. And before we hit the record button, I was just telling her that my wife and I spent some time in Canada, and I probably should have planned that a lot better because it was raining and it was cold, and we didn't pack none of that stuff. So, but it was a very minimal time, and we had a blast. And I'm so thankful for her to be coming on to the show. And let me not hold you guys up no longer. Let me bring into the classroom guest professor Sandra Francisco. Say what's up to the class.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad you said yes for you to be coming on to the show and to be teaching this lesson.
I'm excited. I love business. I love talking anything to do with business, especially startups. And you're right, like so many people are held back because they just have beliefs that need to be broken.
Yes, yes. And I'm glad you said that because I think we are going to be breaking the mold today. Well, at least that's my plan for us to be breaking the mold. So, with that being said, I want you to go ahead and just give the classroom just a quick bio on you and who you are and what you do.
Awesome. I'm Sandra Francisco. I'm a business coach, and my focus is really the interplay between personal growth and business growth. So my philosophy, my belief is that wherever you go, there you are. So I know there's also this belief that when you get into your business, or even if you have a job, that you leave yourself at home and it's like, this is business, that's personal. I don't subscribe to that because I believe that it's almost impossible to really leave yourself at home. So for me, what I work with my clients is actually helping them to understand, okay, where are they getting in their own way? Where are there any blocks to going to finding their full potential, going where they want to go? So it's always that intermix. There's times where we're like totally focused on business, and then we hit a block that's like, we can't fix this with systems. We can't fix this with the business. It's not really a business problem, so we can't fix it with the business system. And then we kind of open it up and look, okay, what else is going on with this human? So that's really kind of my playground, is that mix between the business and the personal. And then we kind of bring it all together to help people get to their full potential.
I love it. I love it. So, obviously, you have a lot of experience, and that's one of the reasons I reached out to you to have you come onto the show to be the guest professor. And I'm just excited to hear what you got to bring to the classroom. So, if you're ready, we can go ahead and jump into the lesson.
Sounds good.
All right. So, the first thing I always ask all of my guest professors is, what is your Genesis moment? And for those of you who are brand new to the School of Hard Knocks, the Genesis Project Podcast, let me explain to you what the Genesis moment is. The Genesis moment is when you come to a fork in your road in your life, and you can go right or you can go left. But it doesn't have to be good, doesn't have to be bad, but you can see what your life could be like beyond those first steps. That is the Genesis moment. So, for example, a Genesis moment of mine is starting this show. Another Genesis moment of mine is getting married. Another Genesis moment of mine is trying out for the CFL, 4 years removed from playing high school football. So, guest professor Sandra Francisco, tell me, what is your Genesis moment?
Yeah, you're right. There's many in our lives, right?
Yeah.
I love your examples. For me, I think the biggest one was actually when I left the corporate environment and 10 years ago, and I actually went off on my own. And for me, I actually wasn't a choice as in, oh, I really want to start a business and I'm going to leave corporate, I'm going to start a business. It actually came because before I left, I spent a year where I experienced really severe anxiety. And for a long time, I didn't know what it was because the medical doctors did all kinds of tests on me. It wasn't presenting normally the way it would. I would actually have a really high heart rate for 3 to 4 days, and then it would go away, then it would come back. So after numerous amounts of tests, finally they said to me, like, you really should think about this being anxiety and you need to go figure that out, which I was like, well, thank you. Like now I'm just on my own. So it was in trying to figure that out and really trying to heal myself that I was like, okay, if I stay in corporate trying to also heal myself, this path doesn't look good. Like there's no light there. So I'm like, I need to exit out of corporate and I need to go spend some time healing myself. And at that point, I was so identified with my corporate position and, titles and everything that I knew it, looking back, I know it had to take something so big to get me to take a different path. So that to me is the biggest moment so far.
Okay. Okay. I love the fact that you got super personal with us and told us about anxiety. And I will be honest, I had no idea about the seriousness of anxiety until I got married because my wife has issues with anxiety. And me, playing sports all my life, anxiety was like, you know, okay, I need to make this shot. I missed. Oh man, the game is over. We lost the game. Something like that, right? But I've really learned more and more about anxiety again once I got married, and then I started realizing, oh, maybe I'm having some issues with anxiety as well. So uh, I appreciate you for being transparent with us.
Yeah, I mean, it's all I can ever be is who I am.
Yes, yes, and thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
So, with you giving us that quick bio, and for you answering us, telling us what is your Genesis moment, I want you to ask, or rather, I want you to answer a question that something I've seen on your website and just from doing some research.
Mhm.
I want you to tell us, how do you start a business and make $1,000 within the first 6 weeks?
Yeah, so that is a free course that's available on my website. And I think people, again, like we said in the beginning, people get so stuck believing that they don't have what it takes. And there's, well, I'm not an extrovert. I don't have, people in my family or in my friend group that have businesses. And I hear a lot of these excuses as well when I work with people. And for me, I really wanted to provide a leg up and get people to start to see that it's not that hard. So the first thing you really got to do is hone in and pick in an idea. So in
Hmm.
that free 6-week course, I actually take them through 4 very specific steps on how to choose the right idea for you. Now, an idea is just an idea. Also, people get caught up there, right? Like I've got to have the
Right.
perfect idea. And I'll also, when I have an idea, I can't share with anybody. What if they take my idea? And really, ideas are nothing without execution. So you can tell everybody your ideas. Good luck, right? If they're not committed to executing. So
Hmm.
that's the first part, and the focus of that 6-week course is getting you to pick an idea and then dealing with some of the main things that I've seen over 10 years now with clients, which is you got to look at your money situation. Like, what's your relationship with money? What's your relationship with value? That's incredibly important to look up right away before you even get into business, because I promise you, it's going to come to you at some point. You're going to have to be, face to face with your value, your money relationship. So I provide the essence in the beginning to really get you going, because, $1,000 to some people may seem like a lot, to some people may seem like nothing, but it's not relevant how much you make. But if you can actually hone in on your idea and start to ask people for the sale, and even if you just make $1,000, it's the start. It's the start of actually believing and having confidence you can do this. And then, of course, there's so much more to building a business. There's a lot more steps, 100%. But if you never get started, then you're never going to have the confidence, because we cannot get confidence from thinking. That's another belief that needs to be, busted. Like, eventually, if I just sit here, I'll find the confidence. No, you got to try. You got to, go out there and maybe fail, but you got to try.
Hmm. I think that's awesome that you bring up the idea of fear, right? Needed to have confidence and things of that nature because I'm sure as well as I think that's people's main issue is getting over the fear and having the confidence to just jump out there and put this idea forward, right? Whatever the idea may be, they just have an issue with just getting over that hump of fear. So I appreciate you for bringing that up. That's something that we tend to talk about a lot when it comes to starting a business, or that's actually one of the main lessons in the School of Hard Knocks is fear. So with that, you talked about having a plan. Can you dig deeper into that? Because I don't think people take that serious with having a plan. You can't just start a business and then just say, okay, I'm just going to go and do whatever, right? But you got to have a plan, right? So I want you to go ahead, jump deeper into the planning phase of having a business or starting a business.
Yes, and especially people that are high creatives.
Yeah,
It's almost like they're allergic to planning. That's
yeah,
something that is very true. And high creatives are usually the ones that are willing to take the risk to get started, right? But on
yeah.
the other hand, they tend to be almost paralyzed by the fact that they just want to kind of go and they don't want to plan. So even when I work with my clients or my private clients one-on-one that we're growing business, I love working with creatives because it's always challenging them to actually get down to the planning stage. Even if it's not, they've already started, they're just growing.
Yeah.
So, the very first thing when it comes to plan is actually look and see where are you at with it. This is very important for me. This is the number one thing that I do is we go into denial a lot and we say, yeah, I am planning. I wrote something down in a notebook and, like I plan. So first, let's get real. What have you done to plan? What do you consider planning? So let's start with where you're at and bring some reality to what it is you're doing now. Then you can observe and see, oh, maybe just writing a few notes down isn't actually a plan. So let's start there. Then what I consider a plan, I mean, I don't think you need to have a full business plan like you would go to the bank and get a loan if you don't need to do that, right? If you need to go
Mhm.
down that route, of course, you need a standard business plan that's going to follow the rules that, you're going to get approved for either investor money or loans or anything. That's a different, different ball game if that's what you need. But if you have an idea, like let's say you're going to, start a consulting business doing a skill you already have, or you're going to, build a product that you have the ability and the funds to bring it out yourself, you may not need a full out business plan, but you still need a plan. So I actually have something called a purpose plan that I work with my clients, and it's actually one page. I try to get them to at least start with one page because again, I work with so many creatives and just had to come with with an idea that would get them to do it. So it would be simple, but it's brilliant to get this all on one page, and it's really answering 3 questions. So first, and I actually have them do it in a spreadsheet. So there's 3 columns. So the first column is what is your outcome? What is it you're trying to achieve? So, and I, again, because I play in that personal and business, I always have them put both on this plan. So what is it you're trying to get for yourself? Like, why are you doing this, right? You're trying to get to whatever, like the money you're trying to make, whatever you want to bring out into the world. What is it that you want to do in a year time frame? Like, so, as we're starting out, let's do what is next year going to look like? So first is detailing your outcomes. Then is actually you're going to say, what is the purpose for that outcome? Because without understanding the purpose, the impact you're trying to have, what it is, why it is you're trying to do it, then if you don't analyze those outcomes, you can have a whole bunch of outcomes that you actually never plan to do anything about. You're just making a list. But
Mhm.
when you have to go back and you have to analyze each one of those outcomes based on purpose, a lot of times a whole bunch gets scratched out. Like I see this all the time where it's like they sit there and they're like, well, I don't know. I kind of thought that I would want that, but now I can't even find a reason why I want it. Well, let's get it out of the plan. And then the third column is actions you have to take. So once you've got your outcome, we've gone through, and usually I help them and I ask a lot of questions to help them get to the purpose. Once the purpose is alive and you're like, oh, that's exactly it. Like I can feel it in my body. This is why I want to do this. Then we break down all of the action items that's going to take to get this done. So at the end of the day, they have like this one page, sometimes 2 pages, depending, but it's a year long, right? So we also don't want to put a ton on there because it's a year. Sometimes we think we can cram 10 years into a year. It's still just a year. So this plan is a guide so that you, as you're building your business, you don't get totally sidetracked and lost. And then it's like, oh, I was going to do this. Now I'm going to do this. Every time you want to change your mind, that's fine. But go back to this plan, to the purpose-based plan, and ask the same questions. Okay, is this outcome you wanted no longer valid because you don't have a purpose for it? Now you're going to replace it with something new. Okay, well, let's evaluate that new outcome. Does it have a strong purpose, maybe stronger than the one you had there? Okay, great. You can always change, but you're not going to just change because your mind fools you into thinking, oh, never mind, I don't want that. Now I'm going to go here. Because I see that a lot. What gets people stuck and they kind of never really launch a product or a service is because they're like, I'll try this and I'll try that, then I'll try that. But there's no method of evaluating what it is you're doing. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I think the fact that you want, or the fact that you try to help people to figure out, or at least put the plan down on paper and let's walk through the whole process. I think that is very imperative. I in the very beginning, I had suffered from, "Oh, I'm just going to go ahead and do it," right? And not necessarily writing things down. Now, of course, I would like to say that I'm more of a veteran now. So now I write everything down. I like to plan everything out. You know, I create what's called a customer avatar, right? Who
Lovely.
is my ideal customer? I give it a name, age range, and all that type of stuff. Give it the whole background, and then I start figuring out where this person likes to hang out at, right? Now, speaking on where to find where my customer avatar hangs out at, I want you to talk about how do we market to, or rather, how do we market our business to those perfect customers?
Well, I think you said a very fundamental thing is first find out who are your ideal clients.
Mm,
That's so, so important. And many, many times that I'm working with clients that are actually my one-on-one clients that already have businesses that they're growing, many times they haven't done a great job at that. And
mm,
and the reason why we don't do a great job there, and then we go right into marketing, and then marketing doesn't have as high return because we don't really know who we're marketing to. That's the biggest thing, is knowing who you're marketing to. I find that that's actually a psychological issue when people don't have the right ideal client or even refined enough or right for them. And it's because of that whole scarcity mindset, where at the beginning of the business, there's a tendency to cast a wide net. Well, if I start to limit and kind of like define it more and more and more, then what if like my product, my service could work for this, it could work for that, it could work for that. I don't want those outliers. I don't want those people not to come to me. So then you make the net bigger and bigger and bigger because you're like, I could do this. Like I could help these people, and you could. I'm sure you could. So many of my clients can. But the problem is when you try to make this big net and your language is also broad, then the people
mhm,
that are really for you, they can't find themselves in you.
mhm,
Like they can't figure it out. So then your ideal clients don't actually come to you, and you end up working with people that are so far and outliers for you that you end up, and I see this over and over, you end up working twice as hard to satisfy them because they're not really for you. And then you either burn out or you start to hate the thing you loved. Or like, I started this business, now I hate this business. And that is so fundamental. Is I just wanted to say, like, brilliant that you've done that. And do not underestimate spending the time to really do the work to figure out your ideal clients. So that's number one when you're going to go market. Now, assuming
mhm,
you've done that, you've spent the time and you're, as clear as you can be. I mean, this is going to change, right? It changes
mhm,
as your business grows for sure. But you feel like you've done the work, and I always like to check if clients have at least 3 clean statements of who their ideal client is. If you're down to that level and you're like, I'm pretty sure it's this, this, and this, and then you test it out, and then you can change it if it doesn't work out. Once you've done that, then the next piece for marketing for me is 2 things actually. Be realistic with your budget. That's, I find, so often it's like, oh, I'll throw in some Facebook ads and I'll see what happens. And when you come Facebook ads, Instagram ads, those are not cheap. if they're going to work. I mean, I think, and I was actually talking to a PR consultant that confirmed this for me, because I was saying to him, I'm like, I've never seen the numbers, but I feel like Facebook makes probably a good 80% of their money from people that don't know what they're doing, and maybe 20% from the people that are actually getting rewards from their ads. And he was like, yeah, it's more like 90. And I'm like, I kind of thought so, right? Right? Because people that don't know what they're doing, they throw even a few $100 or $1,000 at ads, and it's actually not enough capital to really make a difference when it comes to online marketing. Most of the time, right? So it's like, let's be realistic with your budget. If you don't have a huge budget, you probably don't want to start with online ads, because then you run out of your budget so fast and it doesn't really return as much. So you want to look at, okay, what do I have to work with right now? And if your budget is low, then you want to use the capital of your actual engagement. Like, meet people. And now with, everything that's happened this year, there's so many more people that know that you've got to go online to do it. There isn't as much that there was before of locally going to your networking groups and meeting people. Now that's mostly online, but there are a ton of groups that you can find on different platforms that, again, if you've got that clean, 3 lines, 3 words describing your ideal audience, you want to find groups that match that. So whatever it is that you've actually specified as your ideal target audience, there's, I'm sure, a group where those people hang out. So use the ability to go and connect with people. And what I will say, if you go down that road, make sure you truly authentically connect with people. So it's not going to work if you're going to go on those groups, and see somebody is an ideal client for you, and then you message them, oh, I have this product or I have this service, I can help you. You don't want to start off that way, right? So you definitely want to engage, connect, get to know them, get them on, a 30-minute chat, and then, see how it goes. Maybe you can keep it going. I always love to do it. If I get somebody on, a quick chat, like I'll have them just book my calendar for 30 minutes. And then I always love to start with them. Like, if I'm the one engaging, then I always start with, tell me about yourself, tell me about what's going on for you, what you're doing. And then I give them, maybe I would take 5 to 10 minutes of that call to actually explain, who I am and what I'm doing. But I give the majority of the time to the person I'm connecting with, if I'm the one reaching out. And then if I can feel a connection and I can feel like, oh, this is an ideal person that either I just want to get to know and work with as an entrepreneur. It could be, in different collaborations, or it could be an ideal client. Then I just authentically tell them, I'd love to keep talking to you. Can we book another time soon? Right? So that's the one amazing thing about marketing that you can do without spending a lot of money. And if you know your budget realistically is not a huge budget, then you want to do a lot more of that before you go and spend your, small budget on things that are going to have very small return. You know what I mean?
Right. I think that's amazing. With you speaking on narrowing down your market, and creating a budget. I will say that I think we've all kind of wasted our money on doing Facebook ads because, we don't exactly know what we're doing, right? But once you really start, again, narrowing down on what your market is and everything like that, who your ideal client is, I think once we figure that piece out, the whole Facebook marketing, all that type of stuff, it definitely works. And you also mentioned something about engagement with the idea of inviting people to a 30-minute call, right? I think that's amazing as well. So you spoke on with the engagement piece. I want you to kind of talk about the whole calendar part. Like is there any tools for us to help with engagement?
Yeah, I mean, I just use Calendly as far as the calendar that people can just book. So that way you're not also going back and forth with, how about this time, like, that gets very cumbersome from both people. So just having, that's just, there's many different calendar apps. That just happens to be the one that I use. I have different appointments on there. I have my actual sessions on there. So I do pay for the service. But if you just wanted to have one time, a 30-minute session, it's actually even a free app that you can do. And that way you are able to, get somebody opportunity to book your calendar and to quickly schedule that. And I would say, yes, you want to make it as easy as possible, because if you're starting out, that's the number one thing you want to do. Because I find too that a lot of early entrepreneurs in the beginning, the idea stage, that they also spend a lot of time figuring out their logo, what their website's going to be like, what they're going to say. Not that those things are not important, but prioritize engagement. So if you're going to be like, okay, should I be writing out my, website? Yeah, do that. But how much of the day are you spending doing that? And how much are you spending starting to engage? Even if you're just engaging to connect and test things out, it doesn't mean like you're finished, right? You don't have to be, okay, I've got the product ready or I've got the service ready. Don't even wait for that to start engaging. Because you know what? If you've got just an ideal client on paper that you're guessing that could be your ideal client, go engage so you can test it out. Oh, I thought it was this. Now I've had conversations with these people and I realize it's not. So it's never too early to start engaging. And I find a lot of people put that off.
Just to take a step backwards for a little bit, I am reminded by one of my favorite podcasters, John Lee Dumas. He says that the richest is in the niches, right? You want to go ahead and niche down. And I forget the exact phrase that he used, but something like you want to go 6 miles deep but 6 inches wide, and that's how you do it, right? So with that being said, I want you to talk about how do you speak to the psyche of your potential customers. I know we kind of spoke on engagement and Facebook ads and stuff like that, but we got to use the right words to actually get to those clients, right? Or our potential clients and perfect customers and things of that nature, right? So how do we speak to that to that psyche of our customer?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. I love that question. And just you asking that question, I hope people hear that you
Yeah,
need to do that, right?
yeah,
Like, I
yeah.
love that. So I have to say that that's something that will take time. So that's the first thing I want to say. If you put pressure on yourself that as you're starting, like you're just in that idea stage, you're about to launch, and you want to get that language perfect, that's unrealistic. And what I've watched for 10 years of myself and working with entrepreneurs, that will take time. You will get better and better and better at knowing the language, because you know where the perfect language is going to come from? It will come from your clients. So initially, you're going to start with the best you can do in terms of your own research and in the engagement research. So there's only so much you can do in Google research, right? And there's only so much you can do even in socializing in your own environment. Then engage with people, either physically or online, and start to ask questions, start to test it out. And then you'll have a good idea. You've already done that. That's a good idea. But then over time, every client that you work with, they're going to feed back to you. They're going to say, oh, I love this, or, could you do this instead of this? And if it's a product, they're going to, same thing. They're going to feed back to, I wish I had this feature, or, why I came here, or, why I bought it. So your clients will eventually give you the absolute best language to go get other clients. So it's actually something that will take time to get to that, 6 layers in what you're talking about. And I always teach with all of my clients, I always teach that you never, ever stop growing and learning in your business. I mean, you shouldn't in life anyways, but it never stops in your business. So your target market, how you create your target market, it's not a one-time thing. Like, you want to do that in the beginning for sure and get really good at it. And then you do it again and again and again and again. So you're always evolving and growing. What is that language that's going to appeal to that client?
Right.
So definitely, yeah, it's something that you just want to keep in terms of like questioning and writing down. Keep a lot of notes when you're working with your clients, because you're getting into their psyche by the people you're testing stuff out on. So it's like their feedback is really important. And the thing I always want to say too is in their words. Don't translate their words. That happens a lot. We hear one thing and we actually think, oh yeah, my client said this. I'm like, but how did they say it? Like, what words did they use? Because now we're just translating what we think we believe, like we want to say it our way. But I always say, when your client gives you feedback, write it in their exact words. Don't translate it. Write it in the exact words. Over time, that's how you're going to get 6 layers deep.
That is amazing information. Class, I hope you actually taking notes because I am taking notes. That's why you see me keep looking off on the screen because I am jotting all this stuff down. Oh my goodness. So the fact that we would never actually get it right the first time out, but we need to constantly take notes and listen to what our customers are saying or potential customers are saying and using their exact words, not how we interpret it, but using their exact words and putting it back out there. You know, one of the things that I'm starting to realize that the pattern that you are mentioning is taking notes. How important is note taking? Because again, this is obviously not the first time you said it. This is probably the second or third time you've mentioned that. So how important is taking notes?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So, so important. I think in your life and in your business. Because see, our minds, I always like to say the monkey mind will
Yeah.
mess with you. It will like when you're having a bad day, when something happens, somebody maybe gives you negative feedback, something happens, and it's like you throw the baby out with the bathwater and you forget all the good, you forget all the things you've accomplished, both personally and in business. And then there's those moments where I get those panic calls from clients like, I can't do this anymore. Like this isn't for me. I'm done. And I'm like, okay, what just happened? And if I'm on the phone with them, I'm reminding them of, but what about this, and this, and this. So I always do encourage my clients to keep notes on what is going on in their business. The one thing, two things on the personal level, I always tell them to keep an accomplishment journal.
Mm-hmm.
And that is anything, any little thing. We're not going to wait until you make that $1 million to write it in the journal. Any little win, anything that is happening along the way, you're going to write in that accomplishment journal and write in what it is that whatever the accomplishment is and how you felt when that accomplishment happened and what you did for that accomplishment to happen. So that's one thing that I have them keep, like a wins journal, accomplishment journal, so that whenever things go sideways, because business is a roller coaster, as is life, that
Mm-hmm.
they can go back and read their own words and actually remind themselves of how far they've come and how much they've accomplished. Because in the moment, the mind will have you taking, all kinds of decisions that are not in your best interest because it just wants to forget all that good. I'm here in the negative now. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing I have them take notes on from a personal level. And on the business is exactly that. Like, what are your clients saying to you? What are they feeding back to you exactly in the words that I actually have them? Every client I work with has a spreadsheet in, somewhere in their system where they're tracking. Oh, okay. So either somebody in their team or they are getting feedback and they're tracking that feedback, and it's like typed out or written out exactly how that feedback came in. And then they're actually going to comb through that and start to see what are the common words. So over 6 months or over a year, whenever they're going back to checking their plan, and I always have at least a 6-month check-in, like go back to your purpose-based plan, do a check-in, where are you at, where's it going? And one of the activities that I always do with them is say, okay, now let's go look at, the client feedback and let's look at all the links. Let's,
Mm-hmm.
highlight, okay, what are the common words that are on the spreadsheet? So you're not always having to pay so much attention when you're kind of just dumping it in there as you go. And then at some point, you're going to go in there and be like, let me go in and see, okay, what's the common feedback here? Do I need to change the way I'm advertising my ideal client, my marketing, my wording? Is it highlighting, like when I look at all this data, I can see, oh, I'm missing this. And everyone is actually saying the same thing. So for sure, keeping notes on what's happening in the business, what feedback you're getting, but also on the personal level, reminding yourself of all of the good, because as an entrepreneur, there's going to be plenty of challenge, but you're going to need the reminders of what is good.
Right. Right. Just to backtrack a bit, you said having an accomplishment journal so that you can write down your accomplishments, how you felt, and what you did to get those accomplishments, and to track feedback, and to track the common words from the feedback so that you'll be able to use it. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Coming from the sports world, we're trained to look at our opponent, right? Look at game film and devise a plan on, to play the game, to potentially win the game, because ultimately that's our goal, is to win the game. But we also look at film after the game of the game that we just played, so that we can find out what we did wrong and how we can improve it, right? And there's always little check-ins within sports to do a better job next time, right? Um, it's amazing how people within their businesses don't do the same thing, right? Of course, I want to be, a giant in the podcasting world. So what am I doing? I'm studying everybody else so that I can, see what they're not doing so that I can incorporate that in my own podcast so that I can be better, right? And then after I record an episode, I listen to the episode, right? And figure out how I can improve on the next episode, right? I think yes, you have definitely hit it on the head when you said that that's pretty much what we need to be doing.
Yes, exactly. Love that analogy. And that's exactly it. Far too many people are just like next hurdle, next hurdle. Oh my gosh, I can only see but it's like it probably in that chaos or all those hurdles because you haven't stopped to look
Yeah,
at, okay, how can I learn not to be constantly in this chaos?
yeah.
And I love that you can learn from other people, like other competitors, other people, and then come back to, but who are you? That's what
Hmm.
I mean, at the same time, you can go sideways with that and be like, okay, well, I was going to do it this way, but then I see this person's doing so well and they're doing it this way. And then you change who you are. That doesn't usually work. So I always say when you look at competition, even when you're doing target marketing or when you're assessing where you're at, look at competition as in, okay, let me evaluate. Oh, great. I found this system that they're doing and I can see how I can implement that system and that's going to make me better. That's an amazing way to look at competition. But to look at competition and then look at their numbers, whatever their numbers are, and be like, well, I don't agree with that. I can't do that. I don't feel good about that. But their numbers are so high. I'm going to just do it. If
Hmm.
you have that thought, it may work for them, but it won't work for you.
That's a key piece. I hope the class wrote that down. That is a key piece. Staying true to yourself. So
Yes.
I know our time is growing short, so we're getting down to the last few questions. So I want to ask you, what is the one thing you wish you knew before you started your business?
You know, the one thing I wish I knew? I wish I knew that it takes time, that it takes time to know the things you don't know, that it
Yeah.
takes time to grow confidence, and it takes time to get better. It takes time to know your ideal client. Coming from a corporate environment where it was different, like I had so much more control in a corporate environment. Although it's funny because we want to be entrepreneurs because we want to control our time, because we want to control our financial freedom. But then you're like, I always say, like, you become an entrepreneur, you go from swimming in a swimming pool to swimming in the ocean. It's like, you better put up your own boundaries because there are no boundaries. Yeah, great. You can swim in any direction, but you might find yourself stranded, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had so many more, like, control, and I could swim in this swimming pool that was so safe. And, everything just, I felt like, oh, if I want to do this, I'm going to do this. Like, and then all of a sudden I brought that into my business as well, where I'm like, well, how come I just don't get it? I mean, I was such a great student. I was this great employee that I attached so much identity to. And then I tried for the first probably 3 years, put so much pressure on myself to do that. But it's like, wait a second, I don't have a team. I don't have like, a VP that's helping me guide. I don't have any of those people or any of those systems or any of that stuff that I had. I'm out here on my own. So it's going to take time. So if I could go back, I would just say, relax. It's going to take time.
Uh, again, I believe you are definitely hitting it on the head with that. Um, yeah, I don't think we take into consideration of the boundaries like you've mentioned, and that is, well, you won't know until you know, right? And
Yep.
that's what you said. That comes with time, you know. Okay. Well, let me ask you this: what was the biggest mistake you made as an entrepreneur?
Oh gosh, I made so many.
Oh, just name one. Just name one.
Yes, and that's you know what? That's the thing. It's like it's okay. It's okay to make
Yeah.
mistakes. That's also part of the game. But I think one of the biggest mistakes I made, which is related to what I said about it's going to take time. One of the biggest mistakes I made is actually feeling like I had to be something like what I saw as a competition. So early on, it would be like I would look at not direct competition, but I would look at people more like that are doing very, very well in my business or, at the top of, business coaching, for example. And I really thought, okay, this is the path that I have to be. I have to look like that. So it didn't really resonate. A lot of it didn't resonate, but I made this mistake of thinking, well, if I want to be at this high level, then I have to look like that in terms of like how I say my stuff, how I market, the website, everything. It felt like, oh, that's what it takes. It has to look like that. And then it took me time to realize after I made the mistake of trying to do that way, where I was miserable, I literally started to hate what I was doing. I was taking on the wrong clients because I was like, well, that's what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, no, that's not who I am. And I'm like, I am a business coach. And I always say I'm a business coach. My playground is the interplay between business and personal, because that is who I am. That is what I do the best. That's what I love to do. And trying to be a purely business coach that focuses on profit only, that is, like that runs this game like other people. I'm like, I don't even enjoy this. Now I don't want to do this anymore. So I honestly, when I think of the repercussions of that, that was by far my biggest mistake, was actually thinking that success looks like what somebody else is on the outside. And then once I redefined success for myself in my own words, everything changed.
That's interesting. So again, it goes back to what you said earlier about staying true to who you are.
Yes.
And obviously within this confines of you being an entrepreneur or a business owner, staying true to who you are in that sense.
Yes. I mean, it's very hard when you have a personal brand. It's very hard and very taxing. Again, this was a mistake that I made when you're trying to be something else. Because again, you're out there, you're talking to people, you're like, even engaging with people or meeting people or doing interviews. And if you're trying to be somebody else, you're going to get really tired really fast, because it's like, it's no fun.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. With that being said, what is something personal that you want the class to know about you that cannot be found on Google or Wikipedia?
Yeah, I mean, probably a ton. I'll be fine. I think the biggest thing for me is vulnerability has been one of my greatest assets in growing myself personally and growing my business. So for me, it's the fact that, I've made a lot of mistakes and I get lost a lot. And I am human, and I chose to grow and evolve. So I do go into times where I feel incredibly lost and I don't know what direction I'm going in. And then I get into, I guess you could call them like, I've experienced anxiety, but I've never experienced like full on depression, although I have a ton of it in my genetics and in my family. But I go through days where I do feel like giving up and I feel like, why am I doing this? Like, coaching to me has felt like the thing that's answered the question, why am I here? The purpose, where we all trying to find purpose. When I'm in session with clients, I feel like, oh, now I can answer the question, why I'm here, why I'm alive. And it's amazing feeling. But there's still those days where, things don't go your way, where you're like, okay, this program should be further along. Like, why isn't this working? Why isn't that working? And then I go into these dark, dark moments. So I love being in joy and, and experiencing great, beautiful feelings. But there are times I have really dark feelings. And that's something that I'm very honest about, because I think we hold humans to this incredible standard of you're supposed to be, high and up and enjoy and that's what, excellence looks like. And that's not my experience. I mean, I love, today and here, and as we're talking, I'm loving this and I'm loving this chat. But who knows, maybe next week I can have a day where I just feel really dark, and it's part of life.
Now, the next question I want to ask you, you don't necessarily have to answer if you feel that it's too personal or what have you, but hearing you speak on anxiety, I'm just curious to know, how do you deal with your anxiety? I understand that everybody deals with anxiety differently, but just out of curiosity, how do you deal with your anxiety?
Yeah, so for sure. No, and I don't think anything's too personal for me, because again, I'm an open book. I'm like, that's otherwise why I wouldn't be talking. So I will tell you that I actually did cure my anxiety. And I will tell you how, because I always feel like if somebody asks me this question, somebody needs to hear this answer. So when I left corporate in the really intense anxiety, so for me, it was the fact that it wasn't, again, like panic attacks, like normally we call anxiety. I guess you could call it really long panic attacks that would last 3 to 4 days, and it were very intense, and I did not sleep that entire time. So once the medical doctors I felt left me on my own, I actually went to the library, because I thought, okay, I'm going to help myself. I guess I'll go learn something. And I had never even read self-help books at this point. But I went and I was looking through the section and I found this little book that felt like it literally almost fell in my hand. And the book was called Hope and Help for Your Nerves. I think her name is Claire Weeks. And by the time I read this book 10 years ago, this lady had already been dead 40 years. So really, really old, ancient little book. But in that book, she actually tells you how to manage when you're in the depths of both anxiety and depression. But it's a 4 steps. And I followed this to a T. I don't know. I got this book and something in me felt like this is the answer. And as soon as I started to read it, my heart rate actually started to go down. So I felt like I trusted and I believed what she said. And instead of running away from my anxiety, which I would do, so when it would go really high, I would either go to the emergency room because I felt like I was going to explode, or when it was kind of manageable, I would try and go for constant walks, or I would like call a friend, or I wouldn't stay home by myself. I was always trying to get away from it. And what she actually says in this book is stay with it. So I did. So I picked this chair in my dining room, and every time it got really high and I wanted to either go to the emergency room or like go running or anything, I sat in this chair. And she has this little chart in the book too that you rate, how is it that day? How is it the next day? So I could see improvement. So I stuck with it. And it actually took me 8 months of sitting in that chair every time I felt out of control. And after probably the 6th month, I started to get like only panic attacks every once in a while. Like it kept reducing and reducing. And to me, panic attacks were like a great improvement. So I was like, oh, we're good. And then they would come like maybe every week or so. Then they wouldn't come. Then it would be like rare. And then 8 months later, 10 years have gone by now. I have never been in the state of anxiety. I get stressed. I get overwhelmed. Don't get me wrong. Still have those feelings. But for me, what I experienced as anxiety, I've never experienced since. But what I did was I sat with the intensity. That's how I got over the anxiety.
I and most of the class knows this, but I have a identical twin brother who did some time in the Air Force, and now he's a mental and physical coach, trainer, and things of that nature. And one of the things that I loved about he was having boot camps outside and everything when it was warm. And one of the things that I loved about his boot camp was at the end of every session, we have this this mixture of yoga and mindfulness, right? And as we're doing yoga, we close our eyes and we listen. And he's singing things like, listen to the birds, feel the wind, brush against your skin. There's a reason why you're here today. There's a reason why you want to be better, and things of that nature. And I think that for me, it helped me with a lot of things. Anxiety being one of them. And now I find myself, kind of just doing yoga on my own and just thinking back on those things as well. So the last question I want to ask you, because I know your time is short, is what is the one key takeaway that you want the class to take from your lesson today?
I would say the number one thing that I would hope that the people understand when starting businesses is that you are not going to gain the confidence without doing. So if you're sitting thinking, I don't have the confidence, I don't qualify for whatever judgments and reasons that your mind has brought to your attention, all of that is just monkey mind. So feel free to ignore it and go out and try, explore it at least. Then take the planning section. Then you can develop and then you can launch and you can actually play in the arena of business. You're not going to get the confidence. You're not going to get the skills. You're not going to have the personality to be in business until you get there. So do not let that monkey mind get in your way. If you have a desire, of course, if you have no interest, you have no interest. But if you have a desire, do not let that monkey mind tell you not to, because you'll be doing yourself a huge disservice. Just trust and know that it's one step in front of the other, and you'll get the confidence and you'll get everything that you need in the skill set, but it requires action.
That is good stuff. So the last thing I want to have you do before you end the lesson today is I want you to give a shout out as to where the class can find you, if they can find you at Walmart, whatever. I want you to tell the classroom where they can find you, everything that you got going on, and everything that you have coming up.
Awesome. Thank you for that opportunity. I would love to offer your audience also a free course that they can go to ideaswithsandra.com. And actually, it's a 4-part video series that helps you hone in on the best idea for you. So if you are in that space of, I have a desire to be an entrepreneur, but I don't even have an idea or have a bunch of ideas, I don't know which one I should choose, that is a great free course that gets you to that next level so that you don't stay in that monkey mind and you actually take action. And you can also find me on Instagram. It's Sandra Francisco, and there you'll see a link to that free course, as well as a link to book a strategy session with me. If you are already in business, you want to grow your business, you want to explore your profit potential, I'd love to help you. I absolutely love working with people in business. They're also open-minded to growing who they are and evolving to the best version of themselves. So you can find that on my Instagram as well, or you can go to strategywithsandra.com and book yourself a strategy session with me.
Like you said, that website is ideaswithsandra.com, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. I got it up on the screen, and I just wanted to make sure for my show notes. So with all of that being said, I again want to thank you for coming to the School of Hard Knocks and teaching us this lesson. I don't know exactly what I'm going to call this yet. I might just call this the class of entrepreneurship. Who knows? But again, I want to thank you for your valuable insight, for your vulnerability, and for your wisdom when it comes to just starting a business. So with that being said, to you, class, I appreciate you for coming into this classroom and learning this lesson from Guest Professor Sandra Francisco. As you always know, what I like to say at the end of these things is make sure you chase everything with violent action. Class has concluded, and make sure you like, subscribe, and review. And I will see you guys in the next one.
Thank you.
About 15 years ago, I hated where I was at, and I knew that I was meant for more greatness. I wanted to start a business, and I asked my friends and family, how do I start a business? 90% of them never started a business before, and the 10% that didn't remember what they did. So I went on and earned my bumps and bruises from the School of Hard Knocks. My inspiration for the School of Hard Knocks and the courses that I've created was to reach people that felt the same way that I felt way back when. Like I was destined for more. The purpose of the Genesis Project podcast was to move those same people toward that greatness with the guest professor that comes to the show and learn from their mistakes. This is a call to action to those who are searching for greatness. Join the School of Hard Knocks by commenting, sharing, subscribing, and get this message out to those searching for greatness. Click on the links in the description to get more information. And everything you do, everything that you chase after with violent action. I'll see you in the hallway.